Greetings, friends. David J. Coon with Qigong Awareness, streaming live from Wilmington, North Carolina, at a theater near you or perhaps further away. That's my daughter in the background. You probably met her before. That's Bella. So this particular program today is entitled Qigong for Relieving Pain. I first want to thank the Love, Peace, Amen Foundation for sponsoring this program, along with our other two events here in December that we just did the last couple of weekends. So welcome, whether you're tuning in live or you're tuning in later, listening to the recording. Hopefully you will find some very good information here to help you relieve pain in your body and hopefully teach you a thing or two about life, so to speak, in terms of perhaps gleaning some wisdom from things that maybe I have journeyed that might be helpful for you. So I'm the author of Qigong for Beginners, Your Path to Greater Health and Vitality. A little bit about myself, even though I see some of you here who know who I am and know what I'm doing, there are some who don't. And either way, we're going to use this as an important lead into our program today, because I think that many people, including myself, maybe when I was younger, spoke to things that we didn't necessarily know a lot about. And we read some books, but that's intellectual knowledge. Turning something into wisdom means you have an experience of it. Maybe you repeat it many times over again, and you start to have the same result. And then you start to realize, oh, I think I'm onto something. And then maybe in some cases, like myself, you go on to help other people and coach other people and teach other people and educate other people. And you watch other people use the same techniques, the same tools, the same things that you were doing for years by yourself. And you start seeing them have success with it. And that's when you start to realize, hey, I think I'm onto something. So for 37 years now-ish, I have been onto something, and I still consider it an experiment. I'm still experimenting with myself, and I'm still helping other people experiment with themselves. And I think that is a good way to reference it, because at heart, I am a healer, but I also am very steeped in science, and I think that merging Western and Eastern understandings is very important. So a little bit about my background, again, for those who have heard it or haven't heard it, brief story. So in terms of pain, and referencing this from the perspective of pain, many of you, or at least some of you, know I was run over by a trailer on Halloween. It was Halloween night. I jumped out of the trailer, decided we were going to go, my buddy and I were going to run across the forest and scare everybody on the other side. And we did. We scared them. It just didn't go as planned. I jumped back into the trailer, and my buddy got in the trailer, and the wheel caught my right leg, ran over my right leg all the way up over the right side of my back. And I literally had tire tracks going over my right shoulder. I passed out. I was unconscious. Brief story. Amazingly, I didn't break anything. I had abrasions and scrapes and bruises and all kinds of stuff all over my body. Many of the kids were shaking me and asking, they were saying, he's dead, he's dead. I remember waking up to that. And anyway, in the next couple of years, prior to that, I'd been an athlete and playing sports and all kinds of things. And in the next couple of years, the pain really kicked in. I started having tremendous pain in my back, and my neck, my back, my low back, etc. And within those couple of years, I got diagnosed during a routine checkup with scoliosis. They said, you're developing scoliosis. When I went to the doctors, they said, there's still no reason for you to be in this much pain, because on a scale of 1 to 10, my pain at the time was probably felt like an 8 to me. And it just kept kind of growing to the point where I almost couldn't stand it. And really, I spent a lot of years in that kind of discomfort that I couldn't stand. So hopefully I can give you guys some tools and techniques and some teachings to help you get over whatever hurdle and obstacle you're dealing with in terms of pain. Now, pain happens on various levels, okay? We have physical pain, okay? We have emotional pain, which can cause physical pain. We also have mental pain. In other words, the mind is dysfunctional, let's say. anxiety or depression or whatever might be going on there. And of course, that is closely tied to your emotional pain. So you have physical pain, we have emotional pain, we have mental pain that is typically tied in with the emotional and tied in with the physical. And then we have pain that happens on the level of the spiritual, in that we can be disconnected from the spiritual. And that has its own pain. And if you put all of those three things together, physical pain, well, it's four technically, but you put the physical pain together with the emotional pain, with the mental pain, and you have the spiritual disconnection because you're consumed by that other pain. We have a lot of pain. And it's unfortunate, or it is what it is. It's the journey. I mean, pain is a great teacher. This is what I would say. Pain is a great teacher. What I want to do is I want to teach you to address pain at these different levels today. I want to give you a little example or two or three or four or five examples of how to begin to address pain at these different levels. Because in my experience, if there was one remedy for pain, right, everybody would be doing it. Like if chiropractic worked for me, I would be a chiropractor right now, and I would have continued my education for chiropractic school. I did 4 years of psychology and then some, and then I went back to school and studied 4 years of molecular cellular biology, and was considering things like chiropractic school, medical school, etc. Anyway, chiropractic, after 10 years of chiropractic therapy, my spine, not to say chiropractic did this, but my spine was in a progression of getting worse and worse and worse. So by the time I was 25 years old, the doctor said, your spine looks like you're 85 years old, filled with arthritis, curved spine, whole 9 yards. Okay. All right. So we want to come up with some ways in which we can interrupt the vicious cycle that's being created by physical pain, emotional pain, mental pain, disconnection from spirit. We want to find ways where we can enter into the system physically, find ways we can enter into the system emotionally, find ways we can enter into the system mentally, and find ways we can enter into the system spiritually. Okay, so get that in your mind for a moment as we go forward in the program today. Hopefully that makes some sense to you and has some meaning and speaks to you on some level. Okay, and if it does, then you're in the right place today. So recognizing and realizing one of the primary reasons I would say healing is difficult in general, saying healing is difficult, healing from pain or healing from other things. One of the primary reasons that it is so complicated, and we have doctors and chiropractors and acupuncturists and medical Qigong masters and all these different people trying to address health and well-being and so on and so forth, and people having different approaches and perspectives, is because we are, as human beings, multi-dimensional. We are physical beings. We are emotional beings. We are beings that have the ability for mental capacity. We are also beings that are spiritual beings, and there are higher levels of spiritual understanding. I'll say that like that simply. All right, so let's go ahead and take a breath into that idea. Let's just pause for a moment, digest that first chapter, let's say, and take a breath in and exhale that breath. So one thing I will say before I get into some physical practices here, we're going to do some physical practices. We're going to do some breathing practices. We're going to do some practices that are going to address the mental, and we are going to do some practices that address the spiritual, because those are the four things that we are addressing today. For those who have read my book, you already know what's up with it. Those who have not read the book, I just want to say that practices that you're going to find in the book, a lot of people, they go, Qigong for beginners, great, I'm going to learn some Qigong exercises in the book. There are a few, they're basic, and there's not really too many pictures of me doing the exact exercise. I save that for videos. I save that for programs like this. I save that for workshops, etc. The book has many approaches, though, which I'm not going to have time to go into today. Many approaches in terms of looking at every single thing you do as either gathering energy or depleting your energy system. So the next big concept that I want to bring into today's session is this idea of Qigong. Qigong essentially means the cultivation of universal life force, the cultivation of Qi, the cultivation of energy. And if you take the idea and the understanding, because I've studied with this particular master, I've studied with many masters, but this particular master I'm speaking about 20-ish years ago, he said something very profound to me, which eventually became something that led into the beginning and the writing of my book, the theme of the book, etc. He said, every single thing you're doing in your life either adds to your energy or takes away from your energy system. He said, get out a piece of paper, something like this, because it was 20 years ago. I don't totally 100% remember, but it was something like this. Take out a piece of paper, write down on one side all of the things that you're doing that give you energy. And then on the other side, write down all of the things that are taking energy from you. So for example, if I drink Coca-Cola, then I'm going to get energy initially from the sugar and from the caffeine and even maybe some of the chemicals that are in Coca-Cola. Back in the day, they used to put cocaine in Coca-Cola. So that obviously would give me a particular high. These days, that's illegal. But anyway, you get the idea. I get this high, I get this rush, but then later from the sugar, I get the crash. From the cocaine, later, I get the crash. So there are certain things that we do that we might say, oh, that gives me energy. But if there's a crash afterwards, you have to consider that. Let's look at the opposite spectrum. If you get up off the couch and you practice Qigong, you may be too tired to practice physical Qigong. You're like, I'm too tired. I don't have the energy. But you get up off the couch, you practice Qigong, you do some basic movements like I'm going to show you, you start moving the body around and so on. And the next thing you know, you have more energy. So we have to look at really evaluate what really leads to energy in, what really leads to energy out, and it's worth considering, and it's worth getting out your notebook today, later today or something, and literally putting in on one side energy in, energy out. I recommend even taping that up to your mirror in the bathroom. And so how is it that energy relates to pain, or the lack of energy in this case is where I'm really going with it. How does that relate to pain? Okay. The lower and the lesser your energy reservoirs. And again, I'm not talking about the spiked energy that comes from caffeine or, alcohol or some other stimulant or, something like this. I'm talking about natural remedies, but not even natural remedies, just like life, like connecting to nature, like going outside, being in sunshine, just things that are natural. I guess let's say that. When we become depleted, the more depleted we become, the more stagnant the flow of energy is through our body. This is the whole premise behind traditional Chinese medicine. When the flow of qi is not moving through the body, you have all kinds of problems that begin to ensue. And then if on top of that, you're not eating well, then guess what? We have more stagnation, we have less flow of qi, of blood, etc. And then inevitably what's going to happen is we are going to experience pain, we're going to experience dis-ease. It's just inevitable. It's how it works. All right, that's the second chapter. Go ahead and take a breath here. We're about to get into physical practices. I have one more thing that I want to tell you before we get into it. So just take a breath. And I've decided I'm going to tell you while we're standing. So go ahead and kick your chair back, stand out into the middle of your room. Please join me. All right, so one of the general ideas, and yet it's a specific idea too, for Oriental medicine, traditional Chinese medicine. And I want you to start rubbing your hands together, just like this. One of the primary teachings is that when the flow of qi, energy, is not moving through your body, not moving through your being, when it is not flowing, then you begin to have this problem that I talked about in the last two programs called stagnation. And this is lack of flow. And then you start having problems in the body. Now, we already know this in Western medicine. Keep rubbing your hands together, please. It's good for you. Generates some heat, can clear up pain in the hands, issues with arthritis. It also starts to turn your hands into healing hands. This is a very light rubbing, just continuing. You want to be able to do it for a little bit, so you don't want to do it too hard or too aggressive, because you want to be able to just keep doing this for a little bit. So what we want to do is we want to restore qi flow throughout our body. Now, qi and blood, they're married. They go together, okay? They go side by side. They go hand in hand. So we need to move both blood and qi. I would say 90+%, and later I probably will make that number go higher. 90+% of the pain that you experience in your body is due to blood qi stagnation. Let's actually even say, go ahead, go like this now. Throw your hands like you're tossing water off. Let's say 95%. You see, I'm already going up. I'm already going up the ladder. 95%. Even when you injure yourself, therefore 97%. It has to do when blood and qi are not flowing and they're not moving. So it is happening because of the stagnation. Now, a lot of people, when they become injured, we're just going to move our hands lightly like this, shaking them here lightly. They have a hard time even doing this. Maybe the shoulder hurts and they can only go to here. So restoring blood qi stagnation, in other words, restoring the flow, can be very difficult for some people because doing just this, it hurts. Then bring your hands down, brush the backs of your hands on your pants lightly, lightly, lightly. Somebody who is older and their body is maybe not working as well as it used to, they maybe can only lift their arms to here. So you practice here. Some people, they start doing this and right here it hurts in the wrist. So guess what? You need to shake even more lightly. But this type of movement starts to move not only the blood, not only the qi, but it also begins to move the lymph, which is responsible, brush the hands here, for cleaning up your blood. There's another 3 important concepts here, ideas, okay? Blood, qi, and lymph. Understanding blood, qi, and lymph. We need to get them moving in the body because when the lymphatic system stops moving, for example, there's a not so friendly C word that brush here, hands again, called cancer. That is a very common condition that happens in the body when the lymphatic system stops taking care of business, when the immune system associated with the lymphatic system stops taking care of business, and in particular, the business of cleaning up the blood. So go ahead and move like so, twisting, turning, lifting the heel back here. And we just want to create some circulation of energy and qi through the spine. So it's interesting because I studied, again, molecular cellular biology for 4 years. I did organic chemistry and inorganic chemistry and all those kinds of good things, and biochemistry and microbiology and molecular cellular biology and all of these kinds of practices, along with emergency medical technician training, so on. And it's interesting. So, and I've worked in hospitals and stuff, was a supervisor in a hospital. I understand the language of Western medicine. I also understand the language of Eastern medicine. So it's interesting because, for example, if you talk about balance and harmony to a medical doctor, these days some medical doctors are more open to the idea of balance and harmony. They say, yes, hey, that's a good idea. But in their own system, in their own studies, they have this thing called homeostasis. That's a fancy word for harmony in the body. And in Western terminology and Western teaching, they learned all the way through their education about this idea about how the body likes to be at homeostasis. It's pretty funny because once they become doctors, very few of them talk about that anymore. You know, they talk about medications and this, that, the other thing, but rarely do you hear that word in the same way that you would hear harmony or balance. But the body likes to be at homeostasis. The body likes to have harmony. Let's look at the blood for a moment. When the blood is not flowing and the blood is not moving, in Western medicine, we have conditions like congestive heart failure. We have conditions like high blood pressure. We have strokes. All of these conditions that I just described and many more are related to a stagnation in the blood flow. So hopefully you're catching on to where I'm going with all of this. And now you have some reasons to perhaps practice some of these Qigong exercises. We're beginning with a couple of very easy ones, but they're also going to be very easy to remember. And even if you're somebody that doesn't want to turn on the computer later and watch the other exercises that I teach or whatever the case may be, you at least have one exercise that you can just do every day. Get up in the morning and start doing this. And again, if you're in pain, this is hard. You're moving and it hurts. But guess what? Listen, as best as I can teach you, you have to keep moving through that. You have to keep moving through that. It's just like they tell you if you have an injury and you go to physical therapy, they make you work the leg even though the leg hurts, because if you don't work it, you will lose its function because you're not creating any blood flow there. The blood, it needs to come to that area to heal it. And if the blood is not coming to that area, then you're going to have pain there. Okay? We'll get into some other details later when we get back to lecturing a bit. Right now, let's now go into our practices with even more intention. Inhale your breath through your nose, and then exhale your breath out the nose and or the mouth. Sometimes exhaling through the mouth is good to let go of the breath that you might be holding in your belly. It's also good to make a little bit of a sighing sound. So you're inhaling and you're sighing. If you think about it, a sigh is actually a form of self-soothing. And when people get super stressed and they forget about the social etiquette at their job, they make these loud sighing sounds. In fact, I just heard someone do it in the hallway here a little bit ago. They were talking about something that they were frustrated with to another person. And right after they got done doing it, they took a breath and they walked away and they kind of were like, oh, right? So this actually helps the body, helps the mind. So doing it purposefully is a good idea. Inhale. Exhale. This also will bring down your blood pressure, by the way. Then go ahead and stop. Be still. Hold your feet on the floor. You want to kind of grip the floor with your feet a little bit, and you want to bend your knees a little. Again, if you're not used to doing this, right away, just doing this might hurt. But you have to learn to work with some of these things. When you stand, in other words, if you want to get better, it's the only thing that got me better, healed my spine and allowed me to move on with my life. So from here, when you're holding the feet to the floor, one of the ideas behind Qigong practice is that energy begins to come up through the feet, it comes up through the legs, and that begins to feed this area in the lower belly called the lower dantian in Chinese medicine, but in Western terminology, we would call it the second brain, okay? Lots of stuff here related to your nervous system. The largest nerve in your body, called the vagus nerve, starts right in here. And we can either have that area sort of lit up in a stressful way, or we can learn to calm it down. Let's learn to calm it down. Just take both hands and rest them here, just like this. My belly button is somewhere there in between. I'm just resting my hands like this, and I'm standing like this. Most people who go to take this position in this posture are immediately going to feel places of stiffness in their body. Their hip, their quadricep, their ankles, their feet, their shoulders. Here's what I'm going to challenge you to do. Qigong is a very particular kind of challenge. The beautiful thing about it, though, is that unlike aerobics, unlike running, and other exercises we might do at the gym, which are all great for you if you can do them, this is totally non-impact. Check it out. I am not even moving. Non-impact. It's not hard on the knees. It's not hard on the hips. It's not hard on the shoulders. But the moment that you stand like this, you will feel as if it is. There's a reason for that. It's called blood qi stagnation. By standing like this, you cause your body to start squeezing and moving things around. Very similar to going for a walk, but different. And it's a little more internal. Walking is very good for moving the qi and the blood. And then secondarily, the lymphatic system. This is going to start to squeeze your lymphatic system very quickly. Start to move the lymph, start to move the qi, move the blood, move the saliva, related to your digestion. All very important stuff. Excellent job. You made it through that. And just go ahead and march your legs out like this, okay? This is another very potent practice. Doesn't seem to be, it's weird if you've never even done anything like this before. It's weird. But with a little bit of practice and a little bit of understanding, you might really come to like that exercise because it does some very powerful things with your blood, with your qi, with your lymphatic system. I'm now walking my feet up and down. And in Qigong practice, when we do this, okay, we are lightly pounding the floor. But I use the word pounding specifically because we want to actually put our energy we're into the ground a little bit, okay? This helps dissipate some of the stuck qi in your feet. It helps open up these little chakra centers in the bottom of your feet. And when you're doing this, just marching up and down like this and kind of somewhat pounding the feet, there is a muscle back here called the calf muscle in general, but it's also called the gastrocnemius. And the gastrocnemius is considered a second heart. And it pumps blood. So as I'm doing this, this is pumping blood back up to my lungs to be reoxygenated. Okay? And so then the heart can pump that new blood back to my legs and everywhere else in my body. So it's good for the body. So it's a light movement like this, getting that pumping action going in the back of the calf. And then for Qigong practice, we were just doing aerobics. We'd be doing this different, but we want to come back to this position and then hold. And if you just did that right here, your legs probably feel shaky inside. That's the effect that I'm trying to help you have. That's the effect I want you to have, that I hope you're having. It feels like tingling sensations all through your leg, like your legs are vibrating. This is what you want. And then go ahead and bring your hands right back here to this area here. This area is going to be very, very important to get in touch with. It is a source of pain here. It is that, or it is a source of calm. It is a source of pleasure. Those three things can come out of this area. So you want to learn to get in touch with this area. You have some major organs here. And again, you have this major nerve called the vagus nerve, which is related to the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest system. And we want to learn to activate that because that's going to lead toward less pain. Fight or flight, anxiety is going to lead to more pain. So excellent job, you did that again. Good job, you did it twice. Now we have this exercise, it's called Daoin. Daoin means tapping. We have energy lines and energy meridians all over the body, plus we have all these areas in our body where the blood flows. We want to lightly tap these areas to create greater blood qi flow. So we're going to go down the outsides of the legs. Go to wherever's comfortable, but if you can go all the way down, go all the way down. You're going to come up the inside of the legs. Go around the outside, tapping lightly. If you can only go to the back of your knees, that's no problem. Then just come up the fronts of your thighs. If you can, go all the way down below your knees, go all the way down, and then come back up the inside. Back out and down. Up the inside. Do this a couple more times. This is to keep the blood and the qi moving. And as you're doing this, your arms are getting exercise as well. So now we're moving the blood and the qi in the arms. Now, once again, come back. And I want you to hold this position yet again. This is the third time, I believe, that we're doing this. Again, I want you to try and hold the floor and grip it a little bit because you're going to feel a little like you're swaying and so on. But I want you to pause like this because I want you to feel that tingling and I want you to feel that rush of blood. And I don't know about you, but I'm feeling a heat coming right up through here now. Okay, that wasn't there before. So I'm holding, I'm still. I'm watching my breath, observing it, seeing what it's doing, noticing that it is also changing a bit. Inhale, exhale, then go ahead and take your left foot. I'm going to take my left foot. You can take either one and put it forward toward the computer. From this position, I want you to just reach. We're going to do some arm circles, but I want you to go very slow, and I want you to have the fist somewhat closed or the hand somewhat taut. We just want to open up this area here in the front of the shoulder and in the shoulder joint because this is an area where qi and blood tend to stagnate for a lot of people. So, and a lot of people have pain. And again, if you have pain in the shoulder, it's hard to move it. You can only move it a little. Then just go ahead and circles like this. As it becomes more open, more flexible, more fluid, then start moving it a little bigger, okay? And if it's hard to move, again, slow, but be sure to keep moving it. You don't want to just not move it. So now go back the other direction. Slow, slow. And it's best here to bend the elbow some, bend. Here, your shoulder will like that better. Bend the elbow as opposed to keeping a stiff arm. Bend the elbow, bend the elbow, and one more time, bend. Now I'm going to switch feet. I'm going to bring this one forward. Same thing. Arm circling with my other arm. If I keep some tension, light tension in my fist here, then it's going to take the pressure off of the joint itself. And many of you are going to need that. Okay. It's going to be helpful to do it this way. So lightly closed fist, slow circles, elbow somewhat bent. The arm is not completely elongated. This is harder to do. Okay, so you want to keep the elbow somewhat bent there, circling forward. Okay, whatever speed is comfortable, and then we're going to go back the other way. Again, bend the elbow, reach back. Bend the elbow, reach back. Bend the elbow, reach back. Bend, reach back. Bend and reach back. Bend and reach back. Bend and reach back. A couple more times. 1 and 2. Great. Now, one of the reasons that we also have pain is because the oxygen in our blood, in terms of oxygen versus this thing called lactic acid, which comes from stress and too much exercise or not enough oxygen. All right. My simple explanation of that. We need to breathe, and we need to stretch, and we need to move. So let me show you an exercise here. We call this Wei Qi. This is also has to do with a protective energy field. We're going to just lift our hands up. We're going to reach real wide and big. And then we're going to bend our knees as if we're kind of like compressing like a ball here or something. And then the hands will draw up like this. My elbows are going to come up. My fingertips are down here. From this position, I'm going to then reach up and go all the way out. And come down. From this position, I'm drawing up like this. I'm reaching out big. And I'm coming around and down. Do me a favor and just check and make sure everyone's in. From here, you're reaching up, you're going out big like so. Let your breath exhale here. When you're coming up, see if you can inhale through the nose here. Don't be in a hurry. Reach, come out really wide. Exhale. Sink your weight. Now, right from here, breath and hands and legs all coming upward, up direction. Inhale. Reach out big. Exhale. You can let that out through your mouth and let out a little bit of a sighing sound. Open. Reach, stretch. Exhale. Again, for some of you, this might be hard. So, you might need to go here. Your shoulders are stiff. You want to just go like right here. If you can make it bigger, up, 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 you're going out. Reach, stretch up high, tall. Then going out. Exhale. Inhale. Very important to try and get the breath and the movement in sync with each other. And exhaling as I'm sinking. Inhaling, very good for the shoulders, very good for the back, very good for opening up the chest and the heart area. Like if you can do this here, exaggerating this now, slow motion. Reaching out, stretching, reaching back. And then down. Reaching out. We're going to link this right into another exercise. Again, that one's called Wei Qi for your reference for later. You're going to interlace your fingers here. You have any problems with arthritis or anything like that? It bothers you to interlace your fingers in this way. You're going to do side by side with your hands. Let me show you two versions. So the fingers don't bother you and the wrists don't bother you. We're going to be turning our arms over and we're going to be pressing up toward the ceiling like this. If that puts any kind of pressure on your fingers and so on, don't like it. Bring this and just keep the hands apart. And you're just going to go like this, like you're pressing up here as well. Okay. This one's called Upholding the Sky or Uplifting the Sky. These are some general references for this specific exercise. We interlace the fingers if you desire to. We press up and we hold. 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to release the fingers and come down. As we come down, we're sinking our weight. And then we stand a little tall. We're going to reach up, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5. Release, exhale here. We're going to try and inhale now on the up. Inhale. Through the nose, reach, stretch. And exhale. Inhale, reach, stretch. And exhale. Inhale, reach, stretch. Exhale. Reach, stretch. And exhale. Tommy, you want to check the camera here real quick? It needs to be brought down just a little bit at the top, like the computer. Hold. And exhale. If you can, you want to try it. Inhale here. When you get to here, try and hold your breath by tightening your belly. You're just holding your breath in your belly for a second or two. And then exhale. Again, just like the other exercises. When you come up here, like if this is as far as you can reach or this is the most you can do, that's excellent. Do that. It's just like stretching or anything else that you do, okay? You want to reach in such a way that it works for you. If this is the most I can stretch, great. This is the most I can stretch, great. Little by little, trying to bring breath in. Don't force it through. Don't force it. Like where I feel it the most myself is right there in my shoulders, right in my deltoids. So front part of the shoulder. So right here, I want to just breathe in. And as I'm breathing in through the nose, I want to breathe right into those muscles, right into that tension. And then release it. Inhale, hold, press, and exhale. All right. Those of you that have done this one before, you know it. You'll have no problem with it. Those of you who've never seen it before, you may find it a little challenging. But it's excellent for the back, excellent for the shoulders, opens up different energy areas here related to the lymphatic system. So here's the simplified way of doing it. Take your right thumb and put it like you're going to put it in your right ear. From that position here, bring the hand to the top of the head with the thumb pointed toward the computer. The thumb goes to the computer. Hold on one sec, guys. And then this is going to bring energy here. So if we come this way, hold on one sec. Technical thing, guys. Hold on one sec. Okay, we just have a radio playing above my head and its voice is just making sure everybody's muted. We don't want that to come out on the recording, but if they could shut off the radio above my head, that would be great. So we're gonna come back like this and we're gonna bring this, like we're in a pool. This part's like pulling water from the pool, okay? And so if we just did this part, let's do this first. We pull water from behind the pool like so. So if we're in the pool, we pull the water back here and we push it here. We pull the water here and we push it here. Pull the water here. We pull the water here and we push the water here. Pull and push and pull and push. pull, and push. So this is like the second part of this exercise. It could obviously be done on its own, but this is the part that really helps the shoulders and stuff, the back. So thumb to ear, back of palm on top of head. If you can, something close to this. Brush the hair going forward. Pull the water from behind you just like we did. And then push to the front. I go with my other hand, left thumb, left ear. I brush my hair going forward. Back of palm on my head. Push, I pull the water from behind me, and I send it forward. This is a little weird at first, but I just want you to go slow motion, and I want you to keep some degree of tension in your arm, expressing your arm, pushing your arm, extending your arm, so that you can feel every part of that movement. I don't want like a floppy thing like this, you're going too fast. Slow, extend like you're stretching here, then reach to the computer, then go behind you, pulling the water behind you, and then push it toward the front. And then take the other thumb, ear. Again, this may be a little difficult to get to begin with, but I promise you, most people love it. Extend the hand, extending the arm. Notice my arm is elongated. And then I'm extending, I'm pushing, I'm pulling, and then right here, I'm going to push that forward. So now I'm going to try and go a little more fluid. You may or may not be able to keep up with me at this speed, but later you can kind of watch it. If I stay just on my right arm, I can continue just the right arm. Okay, there's 2 times. Here comes 3. Okay, push, come back. 4. Push. Thumb, ear, back of hand, push, right there. I go to the other side. It's going to stay in motion now. If I understand it, it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Excellent job. Reach your hands up. Inhale your breath through your nose. Exhale as you sink your body weight. You can let out a little bit of a sigh. Come back up. Big breath in through the nose. Exhale. You can exhale through the nose and the mouth. Inhale through the nose, but you want to make sure you do it slow, not too fast. Otherwise, the breathing will be off. Exhale your breath. Slow in through the nose. Exhale. So in an external practice, where we need to just get off some stress initially, we want to inhale through the nose, and then we want to through the mouth, we just go, oh. And then again, inhale. And exhale. Oh. Do that a few more times. I see a question coming in. I'm just checking it. Yes, well, we'll tell you. Inhale here and exhale. Oh. Oh. Now that we've done that a few times with inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth, and sighing, we now want to make it more of an internal practice. And in a moment, I'll answer the question that just came up about the last exercise that we did. So staying with this exercise though for the moment, we're going to inhale here through the nose. Now, very slow exhale through the nose. Thank you, my tech folks. Inhale through the nose, exhale through the nose. We're making it more internal now. Inhale through nose, exhale through nose. Inhale through nose, exhale through nose. And go slow with this, guys, not too fast. Hand speed matching your breath speed. Touch your two middle fingers together. Bring the two middle fingers down below the lower rim of the navel center and hold there for a moment. This is like what we were doing earlier, but I'm being a little more technical now. And we are connecting the two fingers. Each finger is related to an element, 5 elements. Each finger is related to an element, and the middle fingers are associated with the element of fire. The lower dantian is sometimes referred to as a cauldron or a cooking pot. And it is a place where in Taoist practice, it is said you can turn lead into gold. Now, lead is heavy. Gold is lighter and it's more precious. So that's a metaphor for turning pain into ecstatic pleasure. But even that needs greater description. But for now, we'll call it higher feelings, higher levels of feelings, lighter feelings, as opposed to pain, which is a very heavy emotional, physical experience. Inhale, you may notice in here as you're holding this, that all of a sudden you get this breath that shoots up on you, goes into your nose. You can feel it come up into your back. That breath is related to your kidneys. Very important breath. Go ahead and tap your legs out like this. Again, this is our Tao in practice, our tapping practice. We have a little change of practices. Go to the practice that I just showed you a moment ago. So we're going just on the outsides, tapping anywhere this time. Go down the outside, come up the inside. We can also extend this. So you have a shoulder issue here. Again, it's related to blood qi stagnation. So tapping this area. If you go see someone like myself back in the day when I did more physical body work like this, teachers, healers, masters, they will tap you here. They will start tapping even more significantly. And after a while, if I were to pull up my shirt, you would see that this gets very red. It brings the blood to the surface. Be careful with that, but it does give you an idea. As you tap it a little bit harder, you will bring blood to the surface. And the blood is, when I say the surface, where's the blood coming from? It's coming from deep in that muscle. So if that muscle group is bothering you and you keep tapping and wrapping this area, you're bringing the blood to the surface, which then allows the blood to circulate and move, and the pain will start going away. Go to the other side, tapping this shoulder now. A lot of times when we do this in the exercise that we're doing, we come here, which is related to the lungs as well. Just a side note there. Tapping all up across here, related to the lungs. And then we're coming down here, down the arm, tapping, go back up the arm. Here, a lot of times this is hard for people to reach, especially me too, even after like weightlifting and stuff, it's hard to reach back here. So I use this other arm and I help myself get back there so I can reach a little bit more back here. Now, one other detail that's really great if you can do it is instead of doing a flat hand, which works pretty good, but what works even better is if you make a cupping hand, you make your hand a little bit like a cup, and then you'll like this much better if you can do it. So it's a cupping, and you can even hear the cupping sound there a little bit. Okay, and then I go over to this side, same thing. Breaking up that blood chi stagnation, tapping yourself to whatever feels comfortable. I'm going to close my fists. I'm going to take my fingers, close them like this, take my 2 thumbs, put them over the first 2 fingers. I want to lightly tap back here. Very light, lightly tapping back here, whatever I can reach. I'm going to tap the hips, the buttocks, the low back. Okay, now people with low back issues, a very common reason for that has to do with this side band on the leg, this band on the side where if you're wearing Levi's jeans or something and you have like a crease right here, that is the IT band, okay? Often referred to as the IT band in like anatomy, physiology, and all that kind of stuff. This is also the gallbladder meridian in Chinese medicine. So what I like to do is I like to take, we can tap, right? But we can also close fists. We take the knuckle here on the side and we want to lightly, whatever's comfortable, because I tell you, one of the biggest places of blood chi stagnation I find in people's legs over many years of working on people is right in the, I call it the heart of the IT band because it's right in this area. It's around gallbladder 34, I believe it is. It's an acupuncture point, those of you that are acupuncturists. So it's right in that area though. And you will, if you start tapping there, you will find it. You may find it anyway. Be careful of finding it because it can make you jump. But we want to just lightly tap it and lightly stimulate that area. It helps to bend over a little bit like this. Keep your legs somewhat taut. And then you're using that knuckle to lightly tap the area and try and get in there a little bit. So I'm tapping the sides of the legs. This is very, very, again, this is very common for people to have stuff going on in the IT band and then coming up here and it really bothers their low back. So I highly recommend that exercise. Let's do a little marching here briefly. Up and down, you're lightly pounding the floor, okay? As I was saying earlier. Okay, and then we're going to do one last standing position, and then we'll have a little break, sit down, go from a little bit different angle here. Okay, give you a little rest from being on your feet if you're not used to practicing Qigong for an hour or whatever the case may be. Bring your feet out, a little about shoulder width apart, knees bent. Remember this hold, you're holding hands like this, flat to your belly. We can also bring middle fingers together, touching the lower rim of the navel center. This also begins to make this an even more potent exercise. We're just going to stay here for a moment. Try and be very still for a moment. I want you to tune into your own body. Do you feel hot right now? Do you feel tingly? What do you feel moving around? What do you feel that's stuck? Those are things to notice. What's your breathing pattern? What's it doing? What is your saliva doing? You have any saliva in your mouth? Is your mouth dry? As you're swallowing that saliva, is it thin? Is it liquidy? Or is it thick like phlegm? These are all things that can teach you about what's going on in your body. Okay? Inhale. Exhale. Good job. And let's bring it in, get a sip of water, etc. So in answer to the question that somebody asked along the way, is this exercise that I was doing where I'm like thumb to the ear and then I'm bringing the hand forward and I'm coming around. I've never learned a name for it in general. So in our system, I call it dancing snakes. So we have a reference for it in our certification program. I've never heard any other name for it, but it's a great exercise. And Again, good for loosening up and opening up the shoulders, amongst other things. Okay, so excellent job. Hopefully you're feeling some things from that, some movement in blood and so on. This is why I like to practice where you do some type of movement and then you go to a stillness posture. Some old school Qigong schools, you know, you'll go in, and if they're kind of hardcore, so to speak, you might go in and all they do is a standing practice. They just stand there, you know, doing some type of standing practice for 45 minutes. And it's like the same practice all the time, for example. Most people aren't going to do that. It's kind of hard to do. And some people might even consider it boring. So including myself, even though I've done that before and I like it, I like to mix it up with different practices. Anyway, when you go from a movement practice and then you practice your stillness practices, it's a really good way for the beginners, especially, and even the intermediates, to get in the stillness practice. Because of all the practices, this is going to be way easier than standing there, holding your belly and not doing anything, even for 60 seconds. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I won't go into them today as far as why that is, because it becomes a complicated subject. I want to stay on our subject today and stay focused on pain. So what I'd like to do now is I want to teach you, and this can be done standing if you prefer, and you can also do it seated. I'll stay up close to you on this one and do it seated just to give you a different perspective. But feel free to practice this one standing again, or we could sit down. So this exercise is going to be a meditation. I want to teach you this meditation. It can be done in and of itself. It can also be used in conjunction with other practices that we're doing. Those folks who know me and who train with me, for example, weekly on our online Qigong class on Thursdays or whatever the case may be, or if you've had other training with me, you know that I like to mix it up. It's like it's Qigong cross training to me, because again, I find that it's more interesting. I find that it is more creative. And I also find that I get much more of, you know, movement in my blood, movement in my chi, etc. when you kind of bring certain exercises all together in these different flows. So anyway, so with that in mind, this exercise can be done all by itself, but it can also be incorporated right in the middle of other things that we're doing. So this particular exercise has become very popular by a teacher. It was popularized by a teacher by the name of Mantak Chia, but this exercise has been around for like 5,000 years. But Mantak Chia has many books on it and so on and so forth. There's a lot of different emphasis on this particular practice in his system of Qigong. So here it is. This is called the microcosmic orbit. So in Oriental medicine, we have these different energy pathways that run through our body. One of these primary pathways, there are more than several primary pathways, and one of them is called the Ren channel and the Du channel. So the Ren runs up the front, the Du runs up the back, and in the microcosmic orbit, we're actually connecting those channels so that we're going to actually create this loop. Okay, we're going to create a loop. And we're going to start this meditation by bringing our mind down to our lower belly. And if it's helpful for you, you can use that same position I showed you where you're doing middle fingers and you're touching the lower rim of your belly button. And then you can keep eyes open and gazing, or if you desire, you can close your eyes. Now you want to become aware of your breath. Just become aware of it. We're going to slow down. My voice is going to slow down. We're all going to slow down together for a bit, and we're going to practice this meditation together. I want to become aware of my breath. Because I'm not moving around and I'm not exerting myself, there's no reason for me to need to breathe through my mouth. I can breathe only through my nose. At first, I want you to just watch the inhale and the exhale, like kind of just let them happen as you start to calm yourself down. Just see if you can watch what your breath is doing. Some people have a hard time doing that. They start feeling like they're falling asleep already. So if that's you, just try and stay awake. I'm going to say that to begin with. Okay. All right. Now we're going to be a little more purposeful in our breathing. So rather than just watching it and observing it, we're going to inhale through the nose. We're going to exhale through the nose. You want to breathe slowly so that your belly is rising up a little bit and then falling. So inhale through the nose, exhale through the nose. This is the opposite of stress breathing. Stress breathing will cause pain. If you breathe more rhythmically, like this particular breath that I'm showing you, you can begin to eliminate pain from all areas of the body. So inhale slowly, easily, in and out through the nose, and keep practicing that for a moment. Okay, good. Now that you've done that a few times, what I want you to begin to visualize, and later you're practicing to be more and more still, doing all of this in synchrony and so on, but I'm assuming you haven't really done much of this before. So in moments, I'll break you off and say, okay, good job. But if you want to just stay with it and keep going, stay with it and keep going. If you want to say, oh, okay, that's my timeout, take a timeout, because meditation on the level that it is, it's challenging. So if you're a beginner, it can be challenging. So if you're able to watch your breath, excellent. The next movement that you want to see if you can see and create in your body mind is breathing. As you breathe in, you want to imagine bringing the energy up your spine. And then you want to imagine that that energy is coming over the top of your head, and you want to exhale your breath. And as you exhale your breath, that energy is coming back down to just below the navel center. This area is associated not just with qi, but also this thing called Jing, which means essence. It's like a very vital qi. So as you inhale, you're going to take the energy up the spine, circulate it over the top of your head, and down into the lower abdomen. So one other detail that we're going to add here, it's going to help us to connect the Du channel and the Ren channel. So as you're inhaling, I want you to go ahead at some point here, and we're going to place the tongue, the tip of the tongue, right behind the two front teeth. It was a little difficult for me to talk to you, teach you all of this with my tongue there. So we're saving that detail for now. So inhale, let the energy come up over the head. It goes down, it comes down actually into the middle of the head a little bit, more to the front, but then it comes down to the tongue, goes down through the tongue, enters into the center of the body, more toward the front, and comes down to the lower abdomen and below. Inhale, take that energy through the crotch area, back up the spine, over the top of the head, and down as you exhale, washing and cleansing your body in this way. Inhale, pulling the energy up, exhaling in your own timing. As you're doing this over time, whether it's in one session or 10 sessions, over time, it is very, very, very important. If you desire to practice things like Qigong, very, very important to begin to get in touch with that lower abdominal area. If you desire to alleviate pain in your body, very, very important to get in touch with that lower dantian, that lower area. So as you're breathing in and breathing that life force up the spine, and then exhaling down the front of the body, okay? Pay attention to the area where the breath is going in and the breath is going out, and that should be your abdomen. You're breathing low abdomen, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out. This is lower dantian. So getting in touch with lower dantian and circulating this qi. If you need a rest or a break or a timeout, you go ahead and take one. But for those of you that want to keep going, I want to keep instructing you in this a bit. So keep breathing in and out, watching. Do your best to pull the energy up your spine, run it down the front of your body, circulate it through your bottom. Inhale, bring the energy up the spine. Exhale, let it come down the front and through the tongue, down through the Ren channel, which goes straight down the center line, goes through the crotch area, and then coming up the backside becomes the Du channel. Inhaling that energy up the spine, washing the body as you exhale. Feel that energy coming down the front of the body, washing the body down the front of the body. And a couple more times, inhale, bringing the energy up the spine. Exhale as you wash it down the front of the spine. And then just pause for a moment. Let your breath be whatever your breath is. Leave it alone. Just let your breath do whatever it wants to do now. And I just want you to focus on, how do I feel? What do I feel? How do I feel? What is going on in my body? Just kind of check in. And then go ahead and take 3 deep breaths. Slow, deep breaths. All right, so that is a practice you can begin doing on your own. You'll also see this in some of my other Qigong practices and Qigong classes that we do and so on. Beginning to work with this microcosmic orbit, bringing that energy up the spine, washing it over the body. This is also a practice that is used in, what Montauk Chi would call sexual kung fu. It's referenced as different Taoist practices, but it can also be used in lovemaking and also just in general, working with your own sexual energy, which may be used in a sexual way, but also may be used in a non-sexual way, meaning that you're taking the same energy that gives rise to sexuality, and you're actually drawing that energy up the back of your spine, and in a practice by yourself, for example, and you're circulating that energy called Jing. Okay, so it's another practice to develop Jing. This month in our Qigong exercise class, each month we emphasize a particular topic, and this month we've been emphasizing Jing development. And Jing development, again, Jing means essence, and technically in the Taoist practices and in Oriental medicine, if you don't have Jing, if you don't have the essence, if you don't have the vitality, you don't have like energy and movement. You don't have like that movement kind of energy, like that kinetic energy where you can like go to work and go exercise and go do these other things. So a lot of times what people are missing is they're missing that vital essence energy. And again, when it comes to pain is something that's experienced when there's different ways to say this. One way would be to say you do not have enough quality energy, very similar to what I talked about when we talked about insomnia. Okay, people who don't get a good sleep on a regular basis and get stuck in that vicious cycle, whether they're insomniacs or just have trouble sleeping, or they're going through menopause or perimenopause and having difficulty sleeping, whatever the case may be. The thing that's missing there, in case you missed that program or you remember that program, What's missing there is a vital energy, a subtle energy, so that we can sleep more deeply. In this case, pain is the same kind of thing. If the energy is agitated, if the energy is frustrated, if the energy has anger on it all the time, well, then you're going to have more pain. And believe me, I understand the vicious cycle of this and how cruel the universe can seem at times, even though I believe in the greater evaluation that the universe is kind. I think that I know that there are times when we can imagine that it's not exactly fair, because you ever heard the saying, when it rains, it pours? That means momentum. And in the universe, there is a thing called momentum. And if you have a momentum of pain, your pain continues to get worse and worse and worse. If you have insomnia, your sleep gets worse and worse and worse. So what we need to do is we need to break these vicious cycles. So I told you earlier that we have these different approaches or different angles of looking at this. So number one, we have physical pain, all right? We need to move the blood. We need to move the chi. I also talked to you about the emotional pain. This exercise that I just taught you using the microcosmic orbit is starting to help you get in touch with the primary emotional center in the body related to the lower dantian, which is related on my chakra chart here from Chakra Journey. This is related to this navel center chakra here. So this is our pain and pleasure center in the body. And so when it comes to pain, we're really typically talking about, from an energetic standpoint, we're talking about these first two energy centers. What color is the root chakra? It's red. You ever seen somebody who closed their thumb in the door? What color is their thumb? It's red. What color is swelling? It's red. Okay, so red, when you have a dysfunctional root chakra, pain will show up in many different places in your body in many different ways, but it has a lot to do with this red energy. So what is one of the new crazes as far as healing pain, although it's been around for quite a while, but there's a new craze. It's called cryotherapy. Cryotherapy, you go in and you go into a machine and they basically spray you with cold, icy energy and substance, and they sort of freeze your body from like the neck down. And of course, you can do the same thing. I did it yesterday in the ocean. I just went into the ocean and it was very icy, and I went in there and dunked under a few times. The reason that cryotherapy works, although can be shocking to a lot of people, so I'm not saying you should or shouldn't go do it. I just want to inform you about why it works. And I want to share with you the idea of hopefully implementing in your life in some way, shape, or form the use of changing temperatures, using heat and using cold to heal pain in the body wherever it is. Now, cryotherapy is pretty extreme because literally it's very cold, and it's influencing, either if you do it artificially, so to speak, in a cryotherapy place, then they typically do from like the neck down. And if you go jump in the ocean, maybe you only go up to your legs, or maybe you go all the way to the top of your head. But the reason that this works so well is it takes the inflammation out, it moves the energy, it gets the blood flowing, it causes your body to contract and then expand. And so that squeeze can really begin to create an internal massage in the physical body, which can be very, very helpful, because most pain that you experience, like I said earlier, depending on how we look at it. But I think of what most people think of as physical pain, they're mostly experiencing it because of stagnant blood and therefore also stagnant chi. So like their shoulder hurts here because the blood is not flowing there. Well, trust me, if you go jump in the ocean, the blood's going to flow there. All right. And your teeth are going to chatter too. But anyway, that's just an idea. So do we need to jump in the ocean to use cryotherapy? No, you can put an ice pack right on your back and use it. And then go look at your shoulder in the mirror, just like I told you earlier when we do our Dao In tapping and you're bringing the blood to the surface. If you go look in the mirror after you've been using that ice bag on your shoulder is going to be very, very red. It's going to pull the blood to the surface out of the musculature. That is exactly what you want. Pull the blood out of the musculature so that it can be moved on and further cleaned up. Okay, very, very important. So you can use hot and you can use cold to make this happen. Typically, if you just had an injury, we use ice, and then after that, heat. That's how it used to be taught. And more people are getting turned on to this combination therapy called, again, ice and heat, ice and heat, heat and ice. Okay. Typically, I like to finish with a certain degree of ice if there is greater inflammation. If you're just feeling stiff and achy, you might want to finish with heat. But anyway, I highly recommend you experiment with both. Okay. All right. I want to give you a couple other details, hopefully help you with some home remedies. This is one little tool. It is a infrared handheld wand. Okay. I don't know what company it is or whatever, but they also have these in the form of big lamps. There's like a lamp. And if you go to your acupuncturist office or something, you may have seen one of these lamps. They're called Tdp lamps. They are, again, a form of infrared therapy. Infrared therapy, you can get one of these on Amazon, for example, or someplace like that for $35 or something. Be careful with them because they don't have a timer. And if you fall asleep and you leave this on yourself, it will burn you. So how do I know that? We won't get into that. But anyway, so be careful. All right. So having said that, it has a high, it has a low. All right. What infrared does is infrared. First of all, infrared is an energy that we get from the sun. All right. So we have a particular frequency coming from the sun in a handheld instrument. So if you didn't get enough sun today, this has some of those attributes of the sun. You can go to a particular area where it's bothering you and you can do this. I recommend doing it with a cloth. You can do it straight on like this, but again, especially on its high setting, this will get very hot. But infrared therapy is related to traditional Chinese medicine. That's where this technology is coming from, because they have found in measuring Qigong masters' hands, when a Qigong master goes like this and goes like that, and they measure what's coming off the hands, one of the frequencies that they've been able to measure is a frequency in the realm of infrared. So that is why, like when I work on people and different things over the years, it is amazing how hot I get internally. And that is another important detail I'm going to segue into. I'm going to come back to this, keep talking about this, but I want to say this also. Think about one of my teachers years ago, one of my masters would always say heat. Heat is the alchemical ingredient needed for healing. Heat is the alchemical ingredient needed for healing. And he wasn't just talking about external heat. He was talking about the heat that we develop in the lower dantian. Because when you develop enough heat in the lower dantian, it starts to burn through your body. And I don't have time to go into all the details of the internals of this, but in time, perhaps you can learn some of these things from our other programs. But there are many things going on internally. I gave you a hint earlier when I said that in the body, lead is turned into gold, and that happens, the process starts in the lower dantian, and then it moves its way up through the system, and we take the heavy energy of pain, we take the heavy energy of emotional pain, and unlike the psychology approach, which I've studied, and I was a counselor and a therapist in a Colorado hospital and a supervisor there for a couple of years out of college, that particular approach, in my opinion, could take forever and a day. I'm not saying you don't need it now and then. I'm not saying it's not important. There are certain phases of a person's life where you just need somebody to talk to and you need some help and so on. But to get to some of the deeper pain and the emotional stress and other things that we feel and so on, just like for me with chiropractic, which I eventually left behind because I couldn't heal my spine that way, I did the same with psychotherapy and practices of that nature. Again, other than rare moments where, I don't know, maybe you're grieving, you got something going on, need to go see a therapist. But in my experience, for whatever it's worth, I find that when you do these kinds of practices, these Qigong practices, you're working with the mental, the emotional, the physical all the time, all the time. It's not one or the other. It's you're working with the mental, you're working with the physical, you're working with the emotional. And as you do that and you're cleansing the emotional, the physical, the mental, you're cleansing it, you're purging it, you're washing it, you're cleansing it, you're purging it, you're washing it. Guess what you're working with? You're working with the spiritual. And we have the physical body here, and we know we have blood, we have chi, we also have different moods and so on, emotions, right? The spiritual begins with the breath. It's the first thing you ever do when you take the body. And if you ever seen anybody leave the body, they exhale and that's it. Their spirit is gone and you can feel it. There's a vacuum in the room. Whoosh, person literally leaves, okay? So breath, very important. So in these practices of breathing, in working with the physical, in working with the emotional, in working with the mental, in working with the spiritual, we begin to generate and we begin to create heat in the lower dantian. We begin to turn heavy lead into a lighter energy, a more refined energy. And then we start to feel lighter in our body and so on. And that's how I healed my spine. I had energy surge through my body. Blood moved, chi moved, lymphatic system moved, my spine moved, everything moved. And all of a sudden I had huge flow in comparison to what I had before. And in doing that, my heart lightened up, my perception of reality changed, my attitude toward other people changed, etc. That, though, is the longer journey. This is helpful for that shoulder that's hurting. And again, the infrared therapy came out of a lot of these studies and so on are happening in China because they saw what the Qigong masters were doing. They saw what the healers were doing. And so they wanted to put a little bit of that in a little handheld device or a lamp. I highly recommend them. They're not the be all and end all, you know, none of it is. A human, this certainly can't replace a human healer or something, you know, the human hands, but it's a great tool, and infrared therapy is a very good thing. They also have infrared saunas, so you can get one of those from, I'm not sure where, but wherever online, let's say, but they range from, I think, $1,000 to probably $5,000. But it's a new thing. It's a new technology, and it's very, very good for helping alleviate pain, because what it does is that as the infrared goes into the tissues, it causes the tissues to do the same thing ice does, the same thing heat does. It causes the poisons to come out of the musculature and come to the surface. Now, once it's on the surface, very, very important. And I hope you're listening and listened thus far. Very important. You need to drink plenty of water to flush that now out of your body. So if you go and get a massage, for example, or you do some infrared therapy, or you do some Qigong practice, and you then don't drink the water, enough water to where you're peeing and peeing clear, the bubbles go away, the yellow color goes away, the toxins go away. If you're not drinking enough water, all that work that you did goes backwards, because all of that gunk will literally just sit back into the tissues. All right. So the next thing that I want to say to you, checking on my time there. Good. So very, very important. If you're experiencing pain or anything else in your life that you're not crazy about, like, you know, whatever that happens to be, low energy, headaches, any kind of physical problem, you're having trouble sleeping, whatever the thing is. Drink more water. Bless your water. If you're not familiar with blessing your water, check out Dr. Emoto's work on the hidden messages in water, because the human mind has the ability through word or through written word or through intention to literally change the water all the way down to its molecular structure. If you've never seen those pictures from Dr. Emoto's books, please go check them out. Emoto is spelled E-M-O-T-O. Check out these books because it will blow your mind when you see the molecular biology going on there and you look down at the little tiny cellular structures of what water looks like when it was sitting in the reservoir, and then they took it out of the polluted reservoir, and then people sort of said some prayers over it, or they wrote the word love on the water bottle, and then go ahead and look at what that molecular structure looks like in the water after they said those prayers and those intentions over the water. Man, that's profound. Simultaneously, stay away from, I know you got to find ways to do it and it's more expensive and so on, but really do your best to stay away from the chlorinated water and so on that's coming out of the tap. If you're in pain and you have those kinds of things going on in your body, you got to try and find better water. You got to bless your water. You got to do things to detox your water. Simultaneously, if you want to remove the toxins from your body that are causing you pain and causing you grief, I highly, highly recommend intermittent fasting, which means you fast for 5 hours and you don't eat anything. During that time, drink your water. Fast for 5 hours, drink your water. Several days a week, I get up, whatever time, 7 o'clock in the morning, whatever. I get up and I do not eat until about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. That is my almost daily routine. So 7 o'clock in the morning till 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm not eating anything. I'm drinking water. And the more discomfort that I'm in when I wake up in the morning, like I feel stagnation or I feel pain in my body, wherever it is, I immediately go to fasting. I immediately drink the water. So however you want to incorporate intermittent fasting in your life, you can do it any way you desire. But if you desire to eliminate pain in your body, more water, more intermittent fasting. And the cherry on top there I gave you was use some infrared therapy if you desire. Okay, so let me take a sip of my water. There was another thing I wanted to say to you there. Let me see if I can remember what it was. I'm not sure, but it'll come back to me if it's important. All right. So drinking plenty of water, using the intermittent fasting, if at any time you can do the combination of intermittent fasting, drinking your water, and practicing the Qigong exercises of breathing and of movement, you're going to see way more results. So let me say it again. If you combine fasting and drinking water and blessing your water, and you practice your Qigong and your breathing exercises while fasting, you are going to see exponential results in terms of healing physical pain in your body. All right, let's go to another exercise related to alleviating pain. Specific exercise. We're going to stand up again for this one. First, we'll do a little bit of movement, get a few things moving, just because we've been sitting. And we're going to go back to our exercise here of just twisting, loosening up the spine, moving the musculature. And we're going to go a little quicker this time. So just be sure to do what's comfortable for you. But I want to show you that the second time around, we could, if we desired, go a little bit quicker with our movement. and a little bit quicker with our practice. And it really depends on how we're feeling that day, what we feel up to, how stiff we are, whatever kind of pain we're in, etc. But again, move it or lose it. Exhale that breath. Let it unwind. Hold yourself still for a moment. The arms kind of come out like this a little bit. This is one of our forms of standing tree meditation. There's a lot to learn with this one. But for a moment, I'm just going to have you stand like that. Go ahead and take a breath in. Inhale, exhale. I'm going to have you take your hands. You're going to shake them here. Again, go lighter than this if you need to for whatever reason. I'm just going to go a little quicker than what I did earlier. I'm going to brush my hands. Be careful not to hurt your hands as you're brushing them on your pants or your legs. Okay, it's like throwing water to the back. I come back up, I shake them here, and I brush, and I brush, and I brush, and I shake them, and I brush, and I brush. And I'm going to come up, I'm going to do a waterfall here. Inhale. This is like standing in a waterfall. Imagine the column of water coming straight down and through. Make an SH sound. Nothing too crazy, just an SH sound. This helps dissipate anger and frustration from the liver and stress from the body. It also helps you increase your concentration. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Check it out. Now bring your feet closer together. Bring your hands right here to this position some of you are familiar with, called prayer mudra or prayer pose or prayer posture. Different names for the same exercise. Hands lightly holding here. If you've ever noticed many religions and holy, what we consider holy practices, that type of thing, whether it's Buddhism or Christianity or whatever religion and so on. So they all hold their hands like this. So many of them hold their hands like this. They may gesture like this. They may put their hands to the third eye. But a lot of times you see this. And oftentimes when I'm doing my vlog on YouTube, I will greet you and say, greetings, David J. Coon from Qigong Awareness. Where are we holding the hands here? Right in the epicenter of the heart, right in the area of the soul. If you all want to eliminate pain, we talked about some physical ways. We talked about some breathing practices. We did some movements. We did a little microcosmic orbit meditation to get you in touch with that lower dantian, which is associated with the emotional body. But I hinted to you earlier that we have higher levels of feeling. And in order to have higher levels of feeling, we actually have to have higher feeling centers, and we do. You have a higher feeling center, it's called your heart center. In the beginning, you will feel grief in this area, you will feel tension in this area, you will feel sadness in this area related to the grief. It's a very common experience there. But as best I can share with you quickly and succinctly, underneath that grief and underneath that sadness, just underneath it, that's where your inner peace lives. That's where it begins. And the deep hurt that you feel in your heart that you think is the best way I can explain it, okay? From my own experience. The deep hurt that you feel in your heart, that you think you feel in your heart, is often not really emanating from your heart. Let me say it more specifically as best I can. It's not emanating from your deep heart. You have a deeper heart space. The deeper heart space is the solution to your pain. The deeper heart space is the solution to the hurt that you feel, the emotional hurt that you feel. And through Qigong practice, this is one of the most powerful ways to activate it. I snuck up on you with it, so to speak. We did some movement practices to move the blood and move the qi and break up the stagnation. We then did we had some conversations and so forth, but we then did an exercise that emphasized working in particular with the lower dantian. In fact, there was a couple along the way that led us then to the microcosmic orbit meditation. And we're moving our mind and we're moving our energy up the ladder of the energy system. Some of the proactive exercises and tools that I've offered you empowered you on the level that they did. In other words, if you took hold of them, then you probably felt some degree of empowerment there. That would be related to our third chakra, or in Chinese medicine, what would be called the yellow cord, related to what goes on in your solar plexus. And now check out where we're holding our hands, the fourth center, the fourth level of conversation that we had. Physical, I told you in the beginning, was one level. Emotional was another level. The third level was the mental. And then I said there was a spiritual level. And many people are spiritually disconnected. They are unplugged from their deeper spiritual connection here. This particular practice in mudra can be done seated. It's easier being done seated for sure. It's more challenging doing it standing. In Qigong practice in general, the more you put into it, the more you get out of it. If you were to do this as a standing practice versus a seated practice, over time, overall, you're going to get more energy from the standing practice. So every once in a while, do a standing practice. And then on days you don't feel like it, do the seated practice. Try and keep your arms and shoulders relaxed as possible, even though you're holding the mudra. Now, some of you have Buddhas, for example, in your neighborhood or on a shelf at your house or on your altar or whatever the case may be. Those statues that you see, those are particular mudras. Or in the Christian church, for example, in the church I used to go to, Mary was standing like this. Jesus was standing something like this, okay, in his resurrected version. So those statues, when it comes to practicing these postures, in the yogic tradition, they're called mudras. A static position and a posture that's anything but static. When you put a little Buddha statue on your altar, it's blessing your space. If this is the mudra, it's blessing your space. But imagine if I were to, I'm not going to do it because I don't want to mess with the energy that we're all creating together here. But if I were to bend over and I were to cough, and I were to stand in a poor posture, imagine taking that symbol and putting that on the shelf at your house over your fireplace. Who would do that in their right mind? No one. Because that cultivates a particular kind of energy. Now, there's something else happening right now called the climax of this particular program. But there's something specific happening in the climax of our particular program. People from around the country and beyond the country, some in Canada and other countries, tuning in, some live, some will be watching the recording later. Everyone is actually still here. They've done many studies on this, and there are many monks. There's a group of monks that will travel around whenever they go to a particular city and they meditate with people and so on. They've been measuring this particular group of monks for many years. Crime rates go down, you know, things in the neighborhood, everything de-escalates. So right now, wherever you are, I want you to know something. As you're practicing this selfish practice of inner peace, this selfish practice of trying to eliminate and eradicate pain in your body, and you're just going for it, trying to awaken your soul to the best of your ability and bring the light. By the way, this practice right here, this will bring the light. This practice will bring the light. It brings the light to you, and it brings the light to other people. It brings the light to the neighborhood. Go ahead and take 3 deep breaths. 1. 1 more. And 1 more. And then walk your legs up and down. Your legs from that probably feel, at least mine do, they feel wonky and stiff and everything else. That's the blood chi stagnation, and that's things getting stirred, but it's also things stuck. So I want to get that moving. I go down here and I tap that. I want to break that all up. Use your breath. Inhale, exhale as you're doing this. Take your 2 middle fingers, place them at the lower rim of your belly button. Hold your hands here somewhat to the belly. They don't have to be exactly flat or anything, just hold your hands there. Try and be still, knees slightly bent. We're going to sit down again in just a moment. If this was an advanced class, we could now take this exercise and go deeper with it. But in order to go deeper with it, you'd have to be able to stand there. You'd have to be able to focus. And in the early years, that's just not possible. But as time goes on and you develop your practices and you become more disciplined with them, this practice alone right here, which you can see pictures of me doing this in my book, you see this, you know, in various advertisements that I use and so on. I'm standing in the river, you know, doing this exercise. This exercise can be done all by itself, and you can set the timer, and I recommend you do. If you're practicing on your own, unless you're watching me or something, practicing a video with me, I recommend you set your timer. 3 minutes, then work up to 5 minutes, then see if you can work up to 10 minutes. This exercise takes discipline. There's magic in this exercise though. So once again, I want to leave you with this image before I go and sit down here for a moment, wrap up some of what we're doing. I want you to imagine I'm standing on your altar right now. If I'm standing on your altar and this is my posture, how is that influencing the energy in the space? It is, I will tell you this, the short answer is, this is very, very different than if I were to pull out a cane, put my cane there, and then start coughing. Those are doing 2 very different things to the energy. Go ahead and inhale, exhale, shake it out. I told this story somewhere along the way. I'm not sure where I told it, if it was in one of these last 3 webinars or my class. You know, I'm always teaching somebody somewhere, so I'm not sure where I said it, but I'll make brief mention of the gentleman that I taught years ago. It's some physical therapy business practice. And we just basically did a short seminar like we did here, and we practiced breathing and we practiced doing different things. And what was so amazing is that this guy came in, and I've seen this, of course, at various times with people in my programs. Guy came in with a cane and left without the cane. You know, we have people, she might even be on our program today. We have people who've come to the program in a wheelchair and left no longer in a wheelchair. So Qigong is very much like juggling balls, and it is a little weird. And, you know, on the level that it is, if you're only used to the Western world and Western practices and Western exercises. But it's not weird to me anymore. You know, I've been doing it for almost 40 years. So I find it to be very effective, and it's just part of what I do and who I am, you know. But to begin with, it might be like, okay, this is a little weird, whatever. But when you see the results from it and you recognize and realize the non-impact aspect of it, those of you who know me know that I run up mountains. You know that I do various forms of martial arts, and I bike and I swim and I do all, you know, all these different things. Trampoline with my daughter, you know, and for me, I'm capable of doing those because of Qigong. Qigong allowed me to do that because back in the day I had a spinal disease that was literally like not letting me do so many things that I wanted to do. And running, for example, if you have bad knees, you know, not going to be so great for you, right? Can't lift weights anymore because you can't lift the shoulder. You can't do this because you can't, you know, you get the idea. So there's almost nobody. I mean, Qigong can work for just about anyone. So like you can accomplish some of the same kinds of things that somebody else can accomplish by going and doing a marathon, but you don't have to do a marathon. You just practice Qigong in your living room a certain amount of time per week, and you're getting some of those same results. And if you pay attention to some of those tricks that I gave you of intermittent fasting, drinking your water, etc., you're going to start eliminating pain in your body. And then again, yeah, there are a few tricks to the trade. Start using some infrared therapy. Obviously, focus on your breath. Turmeric is a very, it's an old remedy. A lot of the yogis like this a lot. Use turmeric. Turmeric replaces, on the level that it does, a Tylenol or an aspirin. So this is something that you can look into as well. And then you also have, just briefly, stay tuned for another maybe YouTube video at some point. But in terms of working through the superficial blood qi stagnation stuff that I'm talking about, so in general, okay, but also somewhat specific. On one hand, and I said this earlier, so I'm reiterating, on one hand, you have the surface journey. Hey, I need to get through my pain and I need to deal with this blood qi stagnation. Okay, Qigong. Okay, breathing. Okay, mindfulness practices. Okay, some other tricks of the trade, drink water, intermittent fasting, etc. Then you have the deeper journey of what pain means, which is climbing, okay, and this is what we get into in our certification programs and so on, climbing this chakra ladder. Your pain is down here, pain is in the red, pain is in the yellow, and as your consciousness, your mind, your energy moves up the ladder, okay, it begins, listen carefully, to secrete medicines into your body. David, what are you talking about? Briefly, David, what's David talking about is every single one of these energy centers is associated with a set of endocrine glands in your body. And the higher your mind moves up this ladder and the higher you move with your consciousness, your awareness, the more that you awaken internal medicine inside the body that doesn't cause the body pain. I didn't have time to get into all that, but I couldn't leave you without saying at least something about that. But on the level of the surface, and this is where, again, perhaps another video on YouTube at some point to help you guys out, but what can you do with instruments like this? This doesn't look like baseball. What kind of baseball is this? Instruments like this are what I would call modern day Oriental medicine tools, including the yoga foam roller. All right. So just briefly, I just want to say that when it comes to moving blood qi stagnation and in pain in particular areas of your body, self-massage tools like this, if you're careful and so on, this is like a Theracane. You got to be careful with this back scratcher, but foam roller, Theracane, they also even have massage guns that kind of tap. All of those things, again, are tools that have been built based off of how Oriental medicine works to break up blood qi stagnation. So on one side, we have the blood qi stagnation. On the other side, we have the bigger journey of opening up that heart and awakening that heart. And again, the postures, the mudras, the breathing, using all of these things at the same time, simultaneously. This way, you can heal yourself, because otherwise I didn't know how to do it. So you literally got physical, mental, emotional, and then higher emotional. And we want to work with all of those so that we can recognize and realize who we are. I just want to, somebody made a comment here. I just want to see here. I found the first thing you said when you, I'm just going to read it real quick. I found the first thing you said when we started that finding an entry point into one of the 4 pillars we worked on today fascinating. To me, that meant just start somewhere and enter into the energy, even if it's small to start, and you provided ways to do that. This is so true. Again, these are all different parts of your being, and you have to enter where you're willing to enter. Some people are going to be more physical and other people are going to be more mental. My book addresses the mental more than the physical on the level that it does, because the physical is saved then for the video. Let's practice like this. All right. But addressing all these levels is super important if you want to awaken healing in your body and in your being. And healing in your body and in your being, as I said, I believe in the last program, and certainly many programs that I've taught over the years, it's always going to be in your heart, guys. It's always going to be in your heart. But we have to climb the ladder to get to the heart. That's the way that I teach it. That's the way it was taught to me. There's a certain degree of climbing that must be done. So when we think about the climbing that happens out in the world, okay, we know what that is. But we have this teaching where Jesus said, look not outside yourself, seek not outside yourself. The kingdom of heaven is within you. From a Taoist perspective, the steps to the kingdom of heaven, and in the yogic practices as well, are related to these chakras, energy centers, dantians. They're worth looking into. They're worth looking into. Have changed my life, and hopefully it will change yours. Like I said, I know it's a little weird at first, but hey, whatever works, right? Thank you guys so much for tuning in today to our program. Those who are tuning in live, thank you so much. You helped me send off a vibe to everybody who's going to be watching this recording later, from now and for the years to come, because this is going to go up on YouTube, and we'll be sharing that free of charge. Thanks to the Love, Peace, Amen Foundation again for sponsoring these last 3 programs in December. Everybody have a happy and safe holiday, and take these practices and engage wherever it works for you. But by all means, practice, practice, practice. It's the only thing that works. It's the only thing I know of that works. That's why I still practice. That's why I'm here with you. So thanks, everybody. Thank you so much. Question. Thank you, David. Will incorporate yet another person shown us. Okay, good. All right. Goodbye, everybody. Take care.